1. From then to now. Part 38. We flew up above the surface of the smooth, blue and beautiful sea, of sparkling diamond-like beings that made up this endless sea of light. The air here was so very clear and pure. As we flew higher, I suddenly saw something in the distance. As we got closer, I could see that it was a huge city, the likes of which I had never seen before. The true description of it cannot be written. It was like we were in the future, and what I was seeing is what would be. The city was actually surrounded by a huge white wall of sorts that was very high. As we flew higher, I could see a gigantic mountain that was near the center of the city. The scene was so enormous in proportions, and far too much to estimate with something to compare to. We are now in the main part of the second world, or heavenly level, that is referred to by the humans as their final resting place. This is actually the first heaven known to man, and the home of one of his worshipped gods. What you are looking at is the mountain of light in this heaven. This is where the sound and light reality from the isness flows downward to sustain this world and all the worlds below, including the earth and all the systems and galaxies. The sound-light reality takes on a dualistic, creative nature from this level. Thus, you have the opposites in human life, he said. The mountain was so very tall. It was undoubtedly many times taller than any mountain on earth. Out of its summit there were millions of different-colored lights that were continuously pouring into the ethers and upward into the sky. There was also a beautiful sun that lit the entire area with a sharp brilliance and clarity. Here, too, the sun caught my attention more than anything, as it stood glowing for all. This great city has many various names by those who have taken this journey, and then went back to earth to tell others of this place. There have been many who have travelled here, and thought this was the ultimate heaven. But this is just the first heaven, not the last one. We will meet with the God that governs this world, for you to see him as he really is. Many of the earth people consider him to be the ultimate creator, but he is only in charge of managing this level and the ones below it. He is so much more aware than the humans, so most tend to worship him as their god, not knowing he is a governor," said Rebazar. We flew over the city that was filled with white palaces and with beautiful domed roofs. I could see people below throughout the area. They were very simply dressed and seemed to be very happy here. There was soft and beautiful music that was everywhere. This place was truly a heaven to be in. I really did like what I saw, but I liked my simple life at the beach also. The feeling here is so very clear and clean compared to the earth. This world is the source of the psychic sciences that I have told you about. You have not encountered any psychics on Earth at this time, but in your next lifetime you will," said Rebazar. As he was telling me about where we were, there were beautiful beings that passed us while we were up over the city. They seemed to be going somewhere, and then they would disappear into the lights that came from the mountain of light. Those who come here from the earth, and especially those who have had a hard life, immediately consider this to be the best of all worlds, because compared to the earth, this level is so much better," said Rebazar. We flew down to the surface, as I saw people dressed in simple clothing, and they were involved in different forms of creativeness that I had never seen before. There didn't seem to be the same type of lifestyle like that on Earth, but it was similar. I never saw any form of money, or the usual means of exchange. Everyone was busy and very happy to be doing what they were involved in. This place was a paradise beyond description, yet the life here was very simple. As we moved along and went further into the city, we came across a huge statue that was so tall I could hardly see the head of it. It stood all the way up to the clouds, and seemed to look out over everything. Rebazar said the statue was erected in honor of the governor of this world. It had been here for millions of years, and was built by many unknown inhabitants of a distant race from the past. He said this is the heaven to many of the religions of the earth, and that they had established themselves here to maintain their followers for support. He also mentioned the alien influence, and said that I would learn so much more in my future life on Earth about them. We moved to the palace of the Lord and Governor of this world. As we entered from the air, we landed on the huge entrance area. There were soldier-like people at the entrance of the palace. They immediately let us pass, and we went inside and walked through a hallway that was faintly lit and had numerous large paintings, the likes of which I had never seen. Then we entered a vast room that had an opening to the sky, and I could see millions of stars shining everywhere in a beautiful open vastness. As we moved into the room, something began to appear in front of us in the distance. The form then became more solid-looking and had the features of a man. He was wearing a reddish type of apparel and looked to be almost 10 feet tall. He watched us with keen eyes as we entered. I was a little surprised at his appearance, because what I was seeing was like nothing that I had seen before. If a person were to come here in their dreams, which many do, they would think they were only dreaming, because of how different this world is compared to the earth and what is here. This heaven is like being in a dream. "The first Lord Governor of heaven and earth," said Rebazar, as he nodded in a humble pose. Rebazar told me, prior to entering this world, about this soul that governed the physical worlds, and this heaven that was thought to be the ultimate by so many people on earth. He said to pay attention to what he would say, because it was his job to escort unaware souls to his kingdom and keep them there until they had to return in future lifetimes to try and find the great reality again. I was a little excited to see what would happen with this ruler and how he would handle himself. Then he spoke. "Welcome, good friends. Welcome to your final resting place, where I will take care of all your needs," he said, as he softly laughed with a tone of mockery in his voice. Then he looked at me very keenly, as though he were sizing me up. I looked at Rebazar Tars, and he just nodded to me, as though to say, just go through the experience. I looked back at the ruler as he spoke again. "Young soul, you, like many others, have had a hard life on the earth, and I, your Lord God, have provided this entire world for you to come and be with me forever. Everything you will ever need is here. I can give you all that you desire, For as long as you want something, there is nothing that I would not do for you. All I ask is that you worship only me, and I will provide whatever you want," he said, and then he looked at me, as though he wanted me to react to what he said. I just stood there, waiting for him to continue, and he did. "What is it that you want? And I will get it for you," he asked again, waiting for my response. I took a chance and said, "The real truth." He hesitated for a moment and then said, "What can be more real than what you see? Look at all the light there is in my kingdom, and look at all the happy souls who are here. Ask any of them who is their Lord and God, and they will tell you that it is me. Look above you into the endless sky. I am everywhere there can be anything. All the riches of heaven and earth are here, and they are all yours. If you will stay and love me as I have always loved you," he said, with a slight grin on his face, but seemed to hide it once he saw I noticed it. "Thank you for the offer, but I will trust my guide and what he has taught me. We are only here to visit, and then we will be going," I said. Then he looked very directly at me and said, "You have gained the wisdom of the unknown guides. You have passed the test that enables yourself to enter the next world that awaits the expansion of your awareness into what you will be choosing. I cannot fool all those who come here, but then again, I have fooled most of the souls who are all around me. I would have liked to have had you with me, but it is your choice to wander through life, always entering the unseen, like your guide. I could have given you everything, but you chose nothing. So be it," he said, and then he slowly disappeared. "This has been something that I didn't count on," I said. "This Lord has a different line for each soul that comes here, Goldie. He was hoping you would accept his offer, but because of the awareness you have, he knew you wouldn't. If it were anyone else, they would have gladly accepted and stayed here to get what their personal self wants. The unaware stay here for many Earth years, but must eventually return unconscious to Earth, under the command of the Lords of Karma, as they are the real taskmasters of souls," said Rebazartaz, as he motioned for us to fly to the next level. He took off first, and then I quickly followed. As we were leaving and passing above the mountain of light, I could see transparent beings moving about in the ethers and going about their way. It was an incredible sight to behold. There was so much beauty in this world, so much more so than on the earth. The beautiful terrain and lifestyle are all so breathtaking. I can understand why the souls here were so happy and wanted to stay. We flew above the city and up into the vast sky until the mountain of light were no longer seen. The sky around us had various beautiful colourings that were soft in nature and then began to change as we came to the next world. As we flew, Rebazar told me to look at myself and how illuminated I was. Just like on Earth, where you left your physical body, you have left your emotional body behind at the astral heaven. We are not moving in the various bodies that you have, but the real awareness you are. There are mystical paths on Earth that use what is known as the light body, but they are only referring to the emotional body that glistens when it emerges from the physical shell. The light body can only take you to the second world, the one we were just in, because there is a cord attached to it that limits you to the first heaven only. There are many teachers that consider the light body to be the soul of the individual, but it is not true, he said. We soon entered the second heaven, and as we did, Rebazar told me to pay close attention to the dividing line that was not really seen, but perceived through the awareness of one's self. It was very subtle, but as we crossed over, I could faintly sense something. Then we flew up above the area to a city that was so magnificent that no amount of description could tell of it. Rebazar said that there were many names for this world, but what was important was the experience of being here, and not what so many have labelled it as, just like where my parents lived on Earth. He said that as I meet the inhabitants of each world, I would become more familiar with what each person terms where they are. For now, it was the second heaven. In the secondary realms is all I needed to know. In this world, there were 3 gigantic towering mountains that were higher than the mountain of light on the level below, with incredible light coming from them. It was hard for me to realize how the beauty of this place could be more so than the one we just left. I was in awe at all I saw.